Have any of you ever played a fan game? I have, but in all honesty, they're not my favorite type of video game. And I hold this view for two reasons. Reason number one is that it's really, really hard to wade through the mountains of garbage to find anything decent. Fan games are the interactive form of fan fiction, and everyone who has ever attempted to delve into the twisted and disturbing world of fan fiction knows that there is way more of Snape and the Teletubbies than, good ones. Reason number two is that it's not canon, so why bother? To me, this is actually a really big deal. I'm the guy who goes and watches a movie and gets mad because Harry Potter's scar isn't in the middle of his forehead. The canon of the story and sticking to that canon is very important to me. Well, here's the thing. I'm here today to tell every one of you why I am a massive idiot. Okay, to start out, I'm going to show you two trailers. One is a fan trailer, while the other is a trailer for a legitimate entry into a franchise. All I want you to do is guess to yourself which is which. Okay, yes. I'm sure that by virtue of the fact that you are watching this show, you know that these are both fan games. And you would have known that had I just shown you the titles. However, take these games to someone who doesn't know video games quite that well, and they may have a hard time figuring out that they were made by fans as opposed to actual developers. So yeah, there are some fan games out there that look as good as games created by the actual developers of an IP. And even better than some. But they aren't canon, so why even bother with them? They add nothing to the story, no matter how good they are, no matter how closely they follow the established canon, they simply won't fit once the next legitimate entry releases. I can play the fan-made Mother 4 all day long. I can enjoy it. I can even love it, but as soon as Shigesato Itoi and Nintendo decide to release the real Mother 4, the fan game not only loses any possible relevance, but confusingly holds the same name as the next legitimate sequel. Fan games are dumb, pointless, confusing, and pathetic. So why even bother with them at all? Well, like I said, I'm an idiot, and despite how I may feel, I simply can't ignore facts here. So to really dig into this, we have to look at the concept of canon. What is it? And why is it so important? Well, in its most simple terms, canon is the original and official content created or accepted by the creator/owner of said content, as well as any changes made or accepted by said creator/owner. For example, it is unfortunately canon that Greedo shot first in the Star Wars movies. Yes, yes, I know. It was a stupid change, and it completely destroyed the only sense of character development that Han Solo had whatsoever. But either way, it's canon. And so are midichlorians. Whatever the hell those things are supposed to be, George Lucas never explained it. However, the droves of erotic Star Wars fan fiction are thankfully not canon. Now, let me stop here just for a second to say that fan games and fan work should never, ever, ever be considered canon. They simply should not. To do so would open up a can of worms that you just can't imagine. And can you imagine just all the fan fiction that would be included into a canon if it was allowed to actually be canon? Canon, the term, would have no relevance whatsoever. So fan games should not be considered canon. However, does that make them worthless? Well, no, actually it doesn't. Let's face the facts here. This is all fiction. Yes, canon is important in establishing the facts of a story. Canon is what says Mega Man is a robot, Mario and Luigi are brothers, and Samus is a woman. However, even within a franchise, canon takes many forms and has different levels of importance. And this is even more true when it comes to video games. For example, the Mass Effect franchise has a very intricate canon that can be relied upon throughout the entire series. You can understand that universe on a very deep level, and every moment is set into stone. Well, until you get into the story of the games themselves. As such, when talking about the canon story of Commander Shepard, it ends up something like this. You play as Commander Shepard. He, or she, is an N7 Marine who becomes a member of the Spectres and goes on a secret mission to hunt down the renegade Spectre named Saren. Joining her on this mission are Caden Alenko, Ashley Williams, Garrus Vakarian, and Tali Zora Naraya. Oh, and Erdnot Rex. Well, unless you don't go with him to deal with Fist, or talk to him on your way off the Citadel. During this mission, they meet Liara Tassoni, exterminate the Rachni Queen, or not, and kill the Thorian and everyone it controls, or they use an antitoxin to save everyone under Thorian control. Or they just ran out of antitoxin grenades and ended up having to kill some of the people under Thorian control. About halfway through their mission, they go to a planet called Vermeer, where Shepard is forced to put down her enraged friend Rex, or she manages to calm him down, assuming Rex is even with them. They also save the unit led by Captain Kirahi, or lets them die to make her job easier, and she saves her best friend's lover, Caden Alenko, from dying in a nuclear explosion, unless she is friends lovers with Ashley, in which case he saves her, or they're friends lovers whatever with Liara, in which case I don't know. The point here is that there isn't really a canon to Shepard's story, and you choose pretty much everything that character does. No one's playthrough of Mass Effect's story is 100% canon, and no two playthroughs are 100% alike. However, the canon of the Mass Effect universe is extremely solid. When I bring up terms like mass relays, Solarians, the Relay 314 incident, the Turian hierarchy, the Krogan rebellion, and even the Reaper Wars, fans can get into a really in-depth discussion about these terms and how they relate to the Mass Effect universe, as if they were really talking about actual history. On the flip side of this, however, the Mario franchise has no definable canon whatsoever. You can't lay out a timeline of his life, and each game seems mostly disconnected from the others, with the exception of recurring characters such as Mario, Bowser, Peach, Luigi, Professor Egad, Toadsworth, and more. You could try, but in the end, you'll run into so many contradictions that it's simply impossible to put together without making an absurd amount of assumptions that in and of themselves are not canon. And As much as I love the franchise, Mega Man is probably the outright worst in terms of canon, because so many games have been made by teams that just don't care anything for its lore, that its canon is just simply convoluted and self-contradictory. Yet these games are considered legitimate additions to their respective franchises, while really fantastic fan works are shoved to the side as irrelevant. Once again, I need to reiterate this because I can't be too clear on this. Fan works, fan games, fan fiction, all of that. None of it, absolutely none of it, should be considered canon. I don't care how good it is, unless the creator sees it, likes it, and says, hey, I want this to be in my universe. It should never be canon. The Mario franchise does fantastically without a fully fleshed out canon. He is the single most recognized character in video games, and the player's involvement, frankly, differs depending on the game. In platformers, he's simply player one, while in RPGs, he and his friends are much more identifiable by their personalities and character traits. However, this isn't the case for everything. Though there's no canon for Shepard's story, the games and choices in them would have had far, far, far less impact if they had been in a universe that wasn't built upon such a deep and intricate canon. Furthermore, when you bring up the concept of canon, you have to take into consideration the concepts such as remakes, updates, spin-offs, reimagining, and all that insanity. Let's look at the Marvel Universe as an example of most of these concepts. The Marvel Universe has been around since 1939, and in the ensuing 75 years, the Marvel brand has created a whole universe surrounding their superheroes. These characters interact on a regular basis. They hang out, they team up, they fight against each other. Some characters from one comic have even killed characters from another comic. There's an entire canon that ties these stories together so that they were able to interact with each other to the degree that events in Thor cause it to snow in the middle of Spider-Man. However, there is not a singular canon for the Marvel Universe. In fact, the Marvel has at least 22 different canon universes. And what is canon to one universe is not canon to another universe. So how does one assign value to Marvel Comics? Is only the main Marvel continuity the true canon, and as such the only one of any worth? If that's the case, then people have wasted billions watching movies set in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is more commonly known as the Avengers movies. Though the canon of the Marvel comics is kinda all over the place, every single one of these universes has meant something to many, many people, despite the fact that The Amazing Spider-Man and The Ultimate Spider-Man have no canon connection. People still love both series. Not to mention the hordes and hordes and hordes of people that love the Avengers movies, in which Spider-Man doesn't even exist. So in the end, the importance of canon is relative to the needs of the franchise. No fictional story has inherent value. Its value is 100% relative to the one who is experiencing a story. I hate Twilight. I think it's dumb. I think it's mindless garbage that is poorly written and teaches extremely bad values to an entire generation of readers. I am also not a fan of the Avengers. Don't shoot me! I didn't think it was a particularly good movie. I certainly don't think it is worthy of the praise it gets. However, there are many people that would vehemently disagree with me. Twilight has a massive following of die-hard and dedicated fans, and The Avengers was the highest-grossing film of 2012. And many of these people would look at my favorite stuff, Les Mis, The Legend of Zelda, Dean Martin, the Mother series, Jurassic Park, things that really resonate with me, and think that they are dumb, old, nerdy, and stupid. In the end, the same thing goes for fanworks. Yes, canon is important glue that holds fiction together and makes sure that it has meaning as well as makes sense. However, it's not the sole arbiter of meaning. No story's meaning is universal, which means that no work of art, be it from the owner of an IP or a fan of said IP, is without value and meaning to someone. Furthermore, as we see from franchises like Mass Effect, Mario, Mega Man, Metroid, and a whole slew of other titles, What is valuable is not always tied to what is canonical. As such, by building onto already existing universes, fanworks can not only have meaning unto themselves, but can also work as a letter of love to the people who have brought these stories to life. Fanworks are not canon. They should never be canon. But if you place all of a story's value on what is and isn't canon, then you are limiting yourself in more ways than one. As for me, I'm gonna go die a few hundred times in Mega Man Unlimited. See you guys in 2 weeks.